Hi, it's Tuesday at 6:30, so it's time for what we're reading. Yay! I hope you're happy. I'm happy. I'm very happy to have Joyanne with me tonight. Joyanne loves books more than almost anybody I know, so it's always fun to talk to Joyanne about books. She talks about them on Instagram, so if you're on Instagram, check out KDL's Instagram feed and look for Joyanne's book talks. You do one a week, right, Joyanne?
I do one a week. Yep, Monday nights.
And how many are you up to now? How many have you done?
Well, I haven't counted them up, but I think it's around 80.
And each one is a different book, right?
Each one is a very different book. Yes, absolutely. Well, and at Christmas time, I doubled up because I couldn't decide because there were so many Christmas books. So I had like two at a time that I was talking about. So
Oh my goodness. So
I
yeah,
know.
she loves to read. So Joyanne is a great person to hit up for a book review. So we'll hit her up right now. Hello, Joyanne. And I have to say too that Joyanne works in our bookmobile.
I do. Yes. So I'm out and about in the community, giving books away, checking out books and library cards and all that fun stuff.
Do you drive that big old thing?
I do.
You do.
I do. Yep.
If you haven't seen our bookmobile, it is the size of one of those extra big RVs, one of the
Campers.
luxury ones.
Yes.
And it's got like Bookmobile written big on the side, and it's really cool inside. What has it got inside, Joyanne? Besides,
About 3,000 books, and then we have computers and iPads, games, music, movies, and a couple of TVs that we can show movies on, or little snippets of
wow.
our online programming and things like that too. And yep, we've got little toys just in case some of our younger friends are on and they need a little bit of distraction so they don't go down the stairs. So, yep, we have just
And
about everything. It's a mobile library on wheels. So anything you get in the branch, you can get on the Bookmobile.
and where does the Bookmobile go?
Everywhere in the county. Generally, we partner with schools or preschools or with the branches for special events and some of our community partners, like for ethnic or heritage festivals. So we're
Fun.
everywhere.
Are you
Yep.
having fun every day driving around in a Bookmobile?
Yes. Except when there's high winds. I don't enjoy that. But
So,
otherwise, it's good.
yay. So, Joyanne, what are you reading?
So I have about 4 books going right now, but the one I'm going to talk about tonight, let's put it this way, is called Dear Fahrenheit 451, and it's Love and Heartbreak in the Stacks: A Librarian's Love Letters and Breakup Notes to the Books in Her Life. And the author is Annie Spence, and it's a Flatiron book published by Macmillan Publishing House.
It
And
sounds like it was written for you, Joyanne.
it really does. It was, I saw it right away and I was like, what is that about? And so, yeah. So just in the front cover, it was like, if you love to read, and presumably you do, since you've picked up this book, you know that some books affect you so profoundly, they forever change the way you think about the world. And then some books disappoint you so much that you throw them across the room. And because that described me so perfectly, I was like, yep, that one has to come home with me. So I
Oh,
checked it out. And I have been laughing out loud as I read the different books that she has done her love letters to, and it's been perfect. I've had so much fun with it.
now are the love letters to actual books that are published?
Yes, yeah. So the very first one that she hit up, and each one of the chapters is a little bit separated by like an old card catalog index card, which is hysterical
Oh, I
too
love it.
in its own. I know, I just love it. And so, yeah, so the very first book that she talks about is the one from the Goldfinch with Donna Tartt, and
Mhm.
it's fiction, Tartt, Donna, and it's growing apart. And she didn't finish it because she just felt like halfway through she just couldn't go anymore. It was too much. It was too heavy. She felt like it lied to her.
Oh, it was so gloomy. I remember that.
Right.
I kept waiting for it to lighten up a little bit and
And
for
it never did.
something to get
That's what she
redeemed, and
said.
yeah, no.
That's what she said about it. I was just laughing. I was like, oh, that was totally my experience. And then she talked about the next one was Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy.
Right?
And she was like, she was reading it while she was watching The Bachelor. That was such a cognitively dissonant for me. And then she was like, I can't finish this. And then she told why she couldn't finish it. And it was just hysterical. But then she also talks about like Frog and Toad and how meaningful that was for her when she was growing up. And that she and Toad are the same person because they're the same size. And Toad likes to take naps and so does she. And it's just funny, funny. And then she has at the time that she wrote this in 2017, she had a little boy. And so she was reading a picture book, My Truck, all the time, every day, every moment. And she just talks about how, thank you for this book, but I'm no longer thanking you for this book because I've had to read it so much. And who knew every single page you would have to talk about the tires and the axles and the wheels and all the knobs and the buttons for every single truck that ever existed, and that she's going to put it on a high shelf and hope her son forgets all about that book because she wants to move on to apples. Something different. And then she talked about the book Matilda and how meaningful it was for her when she was growing up to see herself in this book, a child who doesn't fit anywhere. And yet this book had a magical, just was magical for her. And then that she reread another book, and so it was kind of a love letter back to this book because she just, as a new mom, life was just so different than what she'd ever imagined, and she was just really kind of struggling with that and how she felt alone, but she knew she'd never be alone because her child was constantly going to be with her. And reading that book kind of brought herself back to herself. And that was just beautiful. I was like tearing up because I remember feeling some of that as a brand new mom myself, 24 plus years ago. And so it's been such a journey. I have so many sections marked with little sticky notes because I want to go back. But I mean, she's just amazing the way she's written these for other readers to enjoy. And she talks about Fahrenheit 451. And
what does she say about that?
She just says science fiction, or is it? And so, and it's just that tone, some days the world feels closer to that point than she's comfortable with, the way 451 reads. And just glad that the book has a voice and no eyes because of where we are, and she just has a tremendous way of expressing herself and pulling you in and making you want to read each of those books kind of with that lens a little bit as well. She talks about To Kill a Mockingbird, which is one of my favorite books. She also she touched on 50 Shades of Grey and how she would have to explain to little ladies it's not what they think it is. And then she talks about, reader's advisory at the library and how she apologizes to one book because she saw it come back really fast and she knows that it was just too soon for the patron that she gave it to. And so she's apologizing to the book and she's hoping that enough seeds have been sown that later when the person is really ready for it, they'll pick the book up again and try it one more time because it really is a good book. Anyway, I just love how this author is continuing, she just brings you along the journey and why she read the books in the first place and whether she enjoyed them or didn't enjoy them. She talks about celebrity biographies and how sometimes even though you know what the story arc is going to be like, you just get pulled in anyway. She read Dolly Parton's and then she read Rob Lowe's and a couple other people, and then she also read another one. She has another way that she talks about celebrities and the autobiographies. And she's like, and I don't ever want to be famous because of those books. People know too many things once they're done, there's no going back. And so
okay, I have to read this now, Joyanne. Now
it's hysterical. I'm having such a good
fiction?
Time. It's not. I think it should be considered nonfiction, maybe. I don't know because it's in a packet. It just has the numbers on the
right.
3. So
I'm
I
going
don't
to
know.
look it up for us real quick.
Yeah, Dear Fahrenheit 451.
Because, I mean, it sounds like it should be hidden away probably in the literature section.
Right. Yeah, because it's kind of a commentary. Yep. Yeah, the one that I was talking about, where it came back too soon, so she knows the reader didn't, was from Gabriel Garcia Marquez, The
Oh,
Of Love and Other Demons. And she gave it to a patron because the patron said, "Oh, I just read my first Latino romance, and I need another book that's from Latin countries." And so she gave her that book. And nope, I don't think the patron was
give
not
her 100
ready.
Years of Solitude or something.
Not ready. Not ready for that transition, but maybe later.
So
Maybe
yes,
they'll
I
take it.
looked it up for us real quick. It is in the nonfiction. So if you're looking
Okay,
for
good.
Dear Fahrenheit 51, it's in literature,
451. Yep.
Lit Crit, SPE. So in literature, literary criticism, which is not where you typically look for a book, especially if you're a big novel reader. So look it up. Let us help you find it because this is a good one.
It's super fun. I'm having such a good time. Absolutely. What are you reading? I've talked enough.
That's okay. I am in the middle of a core book that I have not read yet.
Yep.
And by core, I mean KDL Core Collection,
Yes.
where we've picked some of our favorites and our patrons' favorite books and slapped a little core sticker on them for you.
Yep.
And it's called The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek by
Yep.
Kim Michelle Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
And I picked it up because it's a core book that
Yep.
I have never read. And
Yep.
because we're searching, are all these books still popular? And this one really is.
Yeah.
So, wow. And that was written a long time ago. I'm going to have
Yeah.
to pick that up and read it because I
Yeah.
never have. So I did. And I learned so much. I had no idea that in Kentucky at one time, there were people who were blue.
Yes.
I mean, their skin is blue.
Yes.
I'm reading this and discovering that people's skin was blue.
Yes.
And I'm like, is this? I mean, it sounded like I was in The Wizard of Oz now. Because
Right.
there are blue people in The Wizard of Oz and in Wicked. And
Yep.
I'm like, is this supposed to? And then I did some research on it. And evidently, yes, this was a thing.
I did the research too because I was like, I feel like I've heard about this, but I remember I was like, but this can't really be real. And then I went back and I did my research as well because I was like, because it feels so true in the story.
Right.
Because
And you're
it
saying,
really fits. But I'm like, this can't be. This has to just be sort of a myth, and something that people just didn't understand. And they didn't understand it, which is why there was so much stigma attached to it. But also, it was a real thing. Yeah.
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 And it took place in the 30s. So
Yes.
it wasn't that long ago. You think,
No.
yes, there were blue people 300. No, this was in the 1930s.
Yeah.
So it's not that long ago. And this particular blue woman, no one wants to marry her because she's blue.
Yes.
So she is hated
Yes.
for the color of your skin, which obviously that's been a thing for a long time with a lot of other variations. Usually it's the variations of brown. I've never heard it in blue.
Right.
So that was fascinating. And then
Absolutely.
after a horrifying marriage that her father gets her into by basically selling her for a parcel of land.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if someone will marry this girl and take care of her, which I promised her mom I would make sure happens,
Yeah.
then I will give them this great, I've got the land deed right here, like hang it over this poor girl's head.
Yeah.
You can have her for this land deed. So this man marries her who hates, who is afraid of her. Thinks she's a blue demon.
Yes. Hates her.
And she on her wedding night is so violently raped that it ends up killing her husband. I'm giving that away, but it's like the first chapter of the book.
That's how you meet her, is this whole thing. Right. And so you're so shocked and stunned. You can't stop. You have to get to a point where maybe she'll be okay.
It's just horrific.
Yes.
And so now she's the widow after one day.
Yeah.
But I was kind of relieved,
Yes. Because I was
Otherwise, what would have happened to her?
I don't know. It would have been awful.
Yeah. What does happen to her? And she couldn't have gotten this job if she'd been married.
Right.
But she becomes the book delivery woman up the hills of Kentucky.
Yes.
She rides a very Cranky Mule.
Yep.
I am forgetting the mule's name, and I'm reading this now. How could I forget the mule's name? The girl's name is Cussie, our
Yep.
blue-haired person, but a lot of people call her Bluet.
Yep.
Bluet is kind of, it doesn't
Yep.
feel as pejorative as some ethnic names, but maybe she felt that way
Right.
because it came off the lips of some of her nicer patrons too.
Yeah. It was just what she was called, right?
Right,
That was her place, and that was where she fit. Yeah.
right. But she's
Yeah.
delivering books up the mountain, kind of like Joyanne on her bookmobile.
Right? Exactly. Exactly. She represents some of those very, very brave women who did all that during the 30s and 40s, 20s. Yeah.
Yes. And it's amazing because books where she was, when she was, were so rare and hard to
Yeah.
get that
Yeah.
she goes to this building where they're collected for her route, and she gets to try to find some that are decent for her patrons up the hill and what someone might like. And they're a lot less picky than you guys are out there.
I know. Right? I know.
There's
Yeah.
not a lot to choose
Yeah.
from. And
Well,
they
and
just
sometimes she had to convince patrons to take a book, even, or a husband, that it would be okay if a wife had a book, like if it had recipes in it
right.
or patterns for clothing. It had to have some practical use in the home, and then it would be okay her to bring the books. And
Although
that was a hard attitude.
it was real funny that she would take some slightly questionable books. She'd smuggle them up for some of her
She
the
did.
women who are all alone because their men were trying to find work a few,
Yep.
towns or states over, and they're
Yep.
all by themselves. So she gives them some little, I'm sure it was, no 50 Shades of Grey.
No, no, but she did manage to get some different stuff in there for them. Yes. Yeah. No,
Romance.
I
So
loved it.
I am smack in the middle of it. So I hear it turned even more serious, is what I got from the review. So I'm excited to finish it and its a core. And you learn not only about the blue people in Kentucky, but also about WPA programs,
Yes.
which is how she got her job
Hmm.
going up the mountain and
Yep.
bringing books to people,
Yep.
which it sounds like a fun job, except when you read about the dangerous terrain she was driving over and the fact that so many people hated blues. She had to walk. I mean, her mule bites people and is her protector from some really crazy people out there. So,
Yeah. Well, literacy was demonized in some respects up in the mountains. People didn't trust it, and they were afraid. There was a lot of fear surrounding it. So she had to overcome a lot in order to even do her route and meet with, the patrons. And she built a lot of relationships. What I found just so joyful in the book, even though there were really difficult obstacles and things that she had to overcome, just watching the arc of her character development and how she became empowered by this job, and um, how she thought of herself changed through the story as well. It was beautiful.
it's a great book club read.
Yes,
There's a
absolutely.
lot to dig into and talk
A
about.
lot of layers, a lot of things to talk about, and still parallels. Even though it's set in the 30s, you think, well, that's not relevant for today, but there are still a lot of the same underlying attitudes and concerns that people had back then, still that we deal with today. And just being able to explore it in a different time period, I think for me, solidified some of the things that I care mostly about, and I just loved it.
And the topic of this book was also the topic of a Jojo Moyes book,
Yes,
The Giver of Stars.
yes.
And I haven't read that one. Joyanne's, you're saying that one, it's because Moyes wrote it, it's a little more practiced hand at the tiller.
So just a little bit more polished, maybe, and I felt like in some of the areas for the Woman of Troublesome Creek, the transitions were a little bit rough or
Abrupt.
abrupt. And that could also have just been reflecting what Kessie's life was like, just things were happening just very quickly and sort of abruptly for her anyway. So it could have been more of a literary device. But I found the story with The Giver of Stars, it's a similar time period, similar WPA projects, women on horseback or mule. You follow 4 different individuals with The Giver of Stars as opposed to just focusing on Kessie. And, they each had to overcome different things as well. But one thing that they didn't have to was the bluette stigmatism, stigma. And so, yeah, but very similar. Good reads, both of them, for different reasons.
Excellent. So Joyanne, hold your book up again.
Okay.
Doing a little recap here. So you've got Dear Fahrenheit 451, which
Yep.
sounds hysterical, and I'm going to have to run and grab in your nonfiction section, love letters, hate mail, both of them to many books that you would have heard of and read if you're a book lover like we are.
Absolutely.
And for me, The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek.
Yep.
Historical fiction about a giver of books who happens to be blue.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
thanks for joining us tonight. Joyanne, thanks for coming. It's always wonderful to talk books with you.
I love talking with you about it too, Penny. We'll have to, resurrect book club maybe.
Have a good night.
I will, you too. Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.